Expats Episode 6 concluded the chapter of Margaret, Hilary and Mercy's lives that saw them intertwined with an impossibly heavy event. With the Amazon Prime Video limited series focusing on how the expats community in Hong Kong reeled from Gus's disappearance, Expats Episode 6 provided some closure to the women at the center of it all, showing their attempts at fully living their lives following a particularly difficult year. After the entirety of Expats highlighted Margaret, Mercy and Hilary's difficulties with moving on, Episode 6 revealed what made them overcome said difficulties, whether a pivotal event or a meticulous choice. From the Wu's long-awaited return to the U.S. to Hilary's visit to her ailing father in California, Expats Episode 6 included decisive moments that were already hinted at in previous episodes. However, the Expats finale still managed to deliver some unexpected twists, chiefly Margaret's last-minute change of heart and Mercy's mother's visit, which eventually prompted Mercy to come clean with her about what happened during her time in Hong Kong. By focusing on its three central characters and those closest to them, Expats Episode 6 managed to tie up all loose ends and hint at its protagonist's future. Why Margaret doesn't leave with her family? Margaret's decision is the only one possible. Margaret's choice not to walk past the gate with the rest of her family felt shocking after she was the one who suggested they all move back to the US for the sake of Daisy and Philip, but it was the only one possible. Gus's disappearance had after all hit her differently from the rest of her family, leaving her in limbo while the others tried their best to move on. Margaret instead spent the majority of expats either looking for potential perpetrators or focusing on how to go on without Gus. Unlike Clark, Daisy and Philip, it wasn't yet time to move back home for Margaret in Expats Episode 6, because she still hadn't processed Gus's disappearance like her family somewhat did. Expats Episode 6's ending showed her willingness to finally find a way to live her life without waiting for news about Gus, but it couldn't have been with her family in the US, as she felt still indelibly linked to Hong Kong because she lost Gus there. Margaret's story thus ended on a positive note because she still can return, after she manages to process the ordeal fully. Margaret and Mercy's meeting finally lets both characters forgive themselves. They spent expats barely surviving. Nicole Kidman as Margaret Wu and Ji Young-yu as Mercy Kim in Expats Episode 6. Margaret, Mercy and Hilary's meetings to finally, really talk with each other were shown throughout Expats Episode 6, as the finale simultaneously revealed the various conclusions of their individual stories. The honest words Margaret and Mercy had for each other managed to convey the raw feelings they had, but also their willingness to forgive each other after they truly understood that what had happened was a tragedy they needed to come to terms with and accept if they wanted to live their lives fully, especially after they had barely survived in all the episodes preceding Expats finale. Hilary's future after Expats ending explained. Hilary leaves her family's way of doing things behind. Soraya Blue as Hilary star in Expats Episode 6-1. Despite Expats Episode 4's developments in Hilary's story and her confessions to her mother, she still returned home to visit her father on his deathbed. Seeing his other family at the hospital and her mother's nonchalant acceptance of it nonetheless reminded Hilary of how different the life she wanted to carve for herself in Hong Kong was. Hilary's half-siblings having a high opinion of their father prompted her to share what she really thought of him to his face, and while she might have felt guilty afterward, it also let her begin her post-divorce life with a fresh start. Talking to her mother helps Mercy face her pain. Facing Gus' tragedy alone didn't give her the chance to move on. Ji Young-yu as Mercy in Expats Episode 6-1. Although Expats completely changed Mercy and her mother's relationship, Expats Episode 6 saw Mercy's mother finally visit her daughter in Hong Kong. While her words might have sounded judgmental initially, her unwavering support of her daughter was evident even through a pregnancy she didn't know about. It was what Mercy needed after going through Gus's disappearance essentially alone, having not confided in anyone, feeling like she didn't deserve support because she was the one with Gus when he disappeared. Her mother's steadfastness showed Mercy how much she needed her, for the challenge ahead and what she had just gone through. Why Mercy and Charlie's relationship had to end. Mercy was using her bond with Charlie as an escape from her messy life. Ji Young-yu as Mercy and Bon Sham as Charlie in Expats Episode 6. Charlie was a positive influence in Mercy's life and truly gave her a respite after her weighty affair with David and Gus's disappearance, but their bond was also letting Mercy ignore the reality of her daily life. Like Charlie highlighted in Expats Episode 6, Mercy kept peering into her life or those of Charlie's friends, using her relationship with Charlie to escape from and ignore her messy problems, and she didn't even tell her about Gus or her pregnancy until it was unavoidable. For Mercy to face her guilt and move on, she couldn't have continued her relationship with Charlie. What happens to Hilary and David's relationship in Expats ending? They're able to really speak to each other. Jack Houston as David Starr and Soraya Blue as Hilary Starr in Expats Episode 6. Hilary's trip to California in Expats Episode 6 really did a number on her, and David picking her up at the airport proved surprisingly helpful. Despite the last time they met they only shouted at each other. Talking with a clear head about Mercy's pregnancy finally let David and Hilary bare their truth, with David admitting he feared Hilary just didn't want children with him, and Hilary honestly saying she never wanted them with anyone. While their separation stuck, at least they were able to communicate successfully and without spewing hate at each other, showing they were better off than before.